Episode 12, Sustaining Progress and Future Planning. Welcome back and welcome to week 12, the final week in this chapter of your personal growth journey. I'm Giatti and I'm glad you're here. Every week we come together to grow and glow, learning to live more fully, more consciously as we glow from the inside out. This is week 12 of the Giatti Glow Life Coach series. If you're following along in my 12-week life coaching book, that's fantastic. If you don't have the book, that's absolutely fine, but you will want something to write with and write on. If you'd like to get the book, just go to the About section of Giatti Glow where you found this podcast, and there will be a link to my 12 Life Coach Sessions for Coaches and Individuals book on Amazon. Or you can just go to Amazon and search for Schnarr Coach. That's Schnarr Coach. Schnarr is my maiden name, and that's what I use for these books. You can support this podcast by buying any of my books or donating on Buy Me a Coffee. The links are in the Giatti Glow description. And if you've made it with me this far, I really appreciate you sticking with me. It sure would help me out if you could subscribe, and share this podcast. Today's episode is a special one. It's a culmination, a celebration, and an invitation rolled into one. Over these 12 weeks, you've learned to understand yourself more clearly, to navigate your emotions with more confidence, to build habits that support your goals, and to deepen your resilience. You gain tools, insights, and practices that can carry you forward long after this program ends. But perhaps the most important lesson you've learned is this: growth is not a sprint. It's a continuous unfolding, and sustaining that growth, living it, and allowing it to evolve with you is what transforms short-term achievements into lifelong change. Today we're going to dive into what it truly means to sustain your progress and how to step into your future with clarity and confidence. We'll explore reflection, habit reinforcement, long-term visioning, adaptability, consistency, balance, lifelong learning, celebration, and emotional closure of completing this transformational program. This isn't about tying a neat bow on your experience. It's about recognizing that you now have the tools to steward your own growth and that your next chapter begins the moment this episode ends. So find a comfortable space, settle in, and let's explore what comes next for you. Part 1. Honoring how far you've come. When you think about sustaining progress, the very first step is reflection. Reflection is more than just looking back at what you've done. It's an intentional pause or a deep breath, a moment of witnessing yourself with honesty and curiosity. Over the past 11 weeks, you've stretched yourself. You've looked inward, and you've probably confronted some beliefs or habits or emotions that weren't always easy to face. But you've also built strengths and uncovered insights and discovered resilience you may not have ever realized you had. Reflection is the process that allows all of that growth to settle in. It reinforces the idea that your effort matters and that your progress is real. When you reflect, you might begin by asking yourself, what were the most meaningful lessons I learned during this journey? These lessons may not have been loud or obvious. Sometimes the biggest shifts come quietly. In that moment that you set a boundary, or that day you noticed you were kinder to yourself, or that morning when you realized something that used to overwhelm you now feels manageable. Those lessons are worth savoring. Next, think about the habits and strategies that supported you the most. Maybe you discovered that carving out 10 minutes in the morning to set the tone for the entire day. Perhaps journaling helped you process emotions that you used to hold inside. Maybe you found that taking small steps towards your goal was effective and sustainable, maybe more so than waiting for motivation to strike. When you identify what worked, you gain a blueprint you can carry into the future seasons of your life. And finally, reflect on the challenges you faced and what they taught you. Every obstacle contains a lesson, and often those lessons are more valuable than the achievements themselves. Maybe you learned that you can course correct when life gets messy, or maybe you discovered that perfection is not a requirement for progress. Maybe you simply learned that you're far more capable than you once believed. Whatever the challenges were, they shaped you, they strengthened you, and they prepared you for what comes next. Reflection brings you into deeper self-awareness. It allows you to see your patterns and understand your motivations, and to recognize the areas where you want to continue growing. But it also reinforces your confidence by connecting effort with results. When you take the time to reflect, you're not just looking backward, you're building a foundation for everything that comes next. Part 2, embedding habits into daily life. Now that you've taken the time to reflect, the next step is embedding the habits you've built into the fabric of your daily life. Habit building is powerful, but habit sustaining is transformational. Most people can make changes for a few weeks, but learning to carry those changes forward, that's when the long-term magic happens. Sustaining habits begins with reconnecting to your why. Your why is the heartbeat of your goals. It's the reason you want to do the things you've committed to doing, and often goes much deeper than you realize. Maybe you wanted to improve your time management because you wanted more peace in your day. Maybe you wanted to practice mindfulness because you want to feel more grounded. Whatever your goal was, the deeper reason beneath it is what keeps you going when enthusiasm fades or life becomes demanding. Remind yourself often of why you started. Another powerful way to sustain habits is through tracking consistency. When you track your habits, you create a visual story of your effort. You begin to see patterns, days when you thrive, days when you struggle, days when you surprise yourself. Habit tracking isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about strengthening your identity as someone who shows up for yourself. Reviewing and adjusting your habits is equally important. You're a dynamic person. Your goals evolve. Your circumstances shift. The habits that supported you last month may need tweaking next month. Checking in with your routines isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. It's how you ensure your actions stay aligned with your values and your current reality. And finally, no habit thrives in isolation. Building a strong support system can completely transform your ability to stay consistent. Share your goals with people who genuinely care about your growth. Let them cheer you on. Let them remind you of your strengths. Celebrate your milestones together, even the small ones, especially the small ones, because every small step is worth recognizing when you're building a life that matters. Part 3, turning vision into action. Once your habits are rooted, it's time to look ahead. Future planning is where reflection meets intention. It's where you begin to translate what you've learned into a long-term roadmap, and it starts by revisiting the vision you created in week 1. Who were you when you started this journey? What did you want for your life? What did you imagine for yourself? Now, with 12 weeks of growth behind you, ask yourself, does that vision still feel true? Or has it evolved? As you grow, your aspirations naturally shift. Your strengths deepen. Your understanding of yourself becomes clearer. You give yourself permission to update your vision based on who you are today. Once your vision feels aligned, translate it into long-term goals. Imagine the life you want to build over the next 1, 3, 5 years. Maybe you want to start a new project. Maybe you want to strengthen a relationship or nurture your creativity. Whatever your vision holds, the long-term goals you set should reflect it. Then, bring those long-term goals back down to earth by breaking them into short-term steps. The next 6 to 12 months matter more than the next 5 years because they're actionable. They're near enough to feel real, but distant enough to create momentum. When you break a big goal into manageable steps, you create a pathway that feels both inspiring and achievable. Think of it this way, and this is kind of big. Your long-term goal is the horizon. Your short-term actions are the footsteps that take you there. Part 4, navigating change with grace. As you plan for the future, there's something important to acknowledge. Life is unpredictable. Even the best plans will need adjustments. Sometimes the road will curve unexpectedly. Sometimes opportunities will arrive sooner than you hoped. Sometimes challenges will force you to pivot. Adaptability isn't about abandoning your goals. It's about learning how to stay connected with them while allowing your path to shift. Adaptability begins with flexibility. Flexibility is the willingness to revise your plans when circumstances change. It's the ability to say, this matters to me, but I may need to approach it differently now. When you are flexible, you preserve your goals, but adjust your strategies. Growth also plays an important role. Adaptable people don't fear setbacks. They don't interpret obstacles as signposts to give up. Instead, they ask, what can this teach me? Setbacks become guideposts. Challenges become opportunities. Redirections become invitations to discover new strengths. And through all of this, your values remain your anchor. Your values don't change simply because the world around you does. When you're faced with uncertainty, your values become the compass that guides you through it, helping you to make decisions that remain aligned with who you are. You'll know when it's time to adapt to your goals when they no longer feel aligned to your vision, or when your progress stalls in a way that signals something deeper is going on. You might notice that your enthusiasm fades because the goal isn't relevant anymore, or perhaps your strategy is no longer effective. Or maybe even a new opportunity emerges that feels more deeply aligned, even if it wasn't part of your original plan. Adaptability allows you to respond to life rather than to resist it. Part 5, building systems that carry you forward. Consistency is the quiet engine of progress. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. Consistency is what transforms new habits into stable habits. It's what maintains momentum long after the motivation has faded, and it's what allows you to turn your goals into long-term realities. Staying consistent begins with regular check-ins. When you schedule intentional time, weekly or monthly, to review your progress, you create a rhythm. These check-ins become moments of accountability, celebration, and recalibration. You get to see where you're thriving and where you need adjustments. They ground you, they guide you, they keep you connected to your goals. Celebrating small wins is equally important. I've said it a million times. So often, people wait until the final moment, the big major success or big milestone, to allow themselves to feel proud. But small wins are the heartbeat of progress. Each one tells your brain, this matters. Each one reinforces your identity as someone who follows through, and each one makes the journey more enjoyable. Visualization is another powerful consistency tool. When you regularly envision yourself achieving your goals, not just intellectually, but emotionally, you strengthen your belief in the path you're walking. Visualization keeps your goals alive in your mind, which in turn strengthens your motivation to keep pursuing them. And of course, there will be plateaus. Every journey has them. Plateaus can feel frustrating because it's easy to interpret them as failure. But plateaus are often a sign that you're ready for something slightly different, a new challenge or focus, or a fresh perspective. When progress stalls, look beneath the surface. Are you bored? Are you overwhelmed or distracted? Once you identify the cause, you can take steps to move forward again. Seek support, refine your approach, or inject new energy into your goal. Plateaus are temporary, and they're invitations to evolve. Part 6, sustaining progress without burning out. Sustaining progress is not only about doing more, it's about doing well, and that requires balance. Without balance, even the best intentions can lead to burnout. But when you learn to balance ambition with well-being, growth becomes sustainable and so much more enjoyable. Balance begins with realistic expectations. You don't need to reinvent your entire life for progress to continue. You don't need to hold yourself to impossible standards. When you overcommit, your goals become sources of pressure rather than sources of inspiration. But when you commit to a reasonable pace, you give yourself permission to thrive. Balance also means making rest intentional. Rest isn't something you earn only when you've worked hard enough. It's something you need regularly and consistently. Rest restores your clarity, your creativity, and your energy, and it's an essential part of growth. Relationships, too, play an important role in balance. The people around you help you regulate your emotions, find joy, and stay grounded. Prioritizing time with loved ones reinforces your sense of connection and well-being. Mindfulness is another tool for balance. When you practice mindfulness, whether through meditation, breathing, presence, or simple moments of stillness, you create space between yourself and your stress. You reconnect with the moment you're living in. You slow down just enough to hear yourself think. And finally, keep an eye out for signs of burnout. Burnout quietly drains your energy until everything feels heavy. If you notice yourself becoming exhausted or irritable or detached, take it seriously. These signs aren't weaknesses, they're signals. Your body and mind are asking for care. And when you honor that request, you protect your long-term growth. Part 7. Future Visioning and Lifelong Learning. As you move deeper into planning your future, it's important to remember that growth isn't a destination, it's an ongoing journey. And one of the most powerful ways to support that journey is through lifelong learning. Start by envisioning your future in a thoughtful, intentional way. Where do you want to be in 5 years or 10 years? Who do you want to become? What experiences do you want to have? What relationships do you want to nurture? And when you ask these questions, you create a compass, a direction, rather than a rigid map. Then consider the skills you want to develop along the way. Growth requires expansion, not pressure. The more skills you cultivate, whether personal, emotional, creative, professional, the more empowered you become to shape your life intentionally. Lifelong learning isn't limited to books or courses. It can happen through conversations and mentorship, travel, creativity, simply paying attention to the world around you. When you approach your life with curiosity, everything becomes an opportunity to grow. Part 8. Honoring the journey and transformation. Before we close, let's talk about celebration, because celebration is far more important than people think. Celebrating your progress reinforces your identity as someone who grows, someone who tries, and someone who keeps going. When you celebrate, you strengthen your confidence and set the emotional tone for the next chapter. Take time to reflect on the milestones you've reached over the last 12 weeks. Think about the habits you built, the insights you gained, and the challenges you overcame, and the moments you simply refused to give up. Share your achievements with people who care about you. Let them see your joy, and let them reflect back to you the strength they see. And don't forget to treat yourself. Choose something meaningful, something that reminds you of that effort deserves acknowledgement. It doesn't need to be extravagant. It needs to be intentional. And as you look back, also look forward. Recognize how much you've grown, not just in what you do, but who you are. Growth isn't visible moment to moment, but when you step back, you begin to see just how much you've changed. Part 9. A New Beginning. As we reach the end of this 12-week journey, I want you to take a deep breath and feel the significance of what you've accomplished. You didn't just follow a program, you invested in yourself. You leaned into growth and you showed up, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in powerful ways, and you created momentum that you can carry forward for months, even years to come. Sustaining progress and planning for the future isn't a final destination. It's a lifelong commitment to growth, curiosity, self-awareness, and intention. Over these past 12 weeks, you've developed habits, insights, and strengths that will continue to evolve. You've built a foundation that you can always return to no matter what comes your way. This is the beginning of a new chapter, one where you step forward with purpose, clarity, and confidence. Keep learning, keep growing, keep celebrating, and above all, keep believing that you are capable of creating a life that reflects your deepest values and highest vision. Congratulations on completing this transformative journey. You've earned every bit of it. I'm super excited about Giatti Glow in 2026. From April through June, we'll be covering happiness. From July through September, we'll be working on somatic healing. And October through December, we'll be tackling confidence. But first up is Ikigai. Starting January 1st, 2026, we'll do 12 weeks of Ikigai coaching. And I can't wait. See you then. Giatti Glow is powered by the Life Coach Store, which is owned by me, Barb Giatti. On my website, you can find all kinds of great resources for over 20 types of wellness coaches. Check out thelifecoach.store for more information.